Hello, I'm Dr. Ron Horner with courtsofheaven.net. I'm the author of several books on the courts of heaven that you can find on the website, and I want to talk to you today and ask you a question first. Do you have trouble seeing or hearing in the realm of the Spirit? If you do, I have some solutions for you. One that we've recently discovered that we're seeing excellent results from, and that will help you unlock your spiritual seeing or hearing. Now, what we're teaching today will be coming from the court of heaven known as the court of titles and deeds. Now, in this particular court, sometimes we find people that have false titles against their life, or liens against their life, or false notes against their life, or even false lease agreements against their life. Now, in Psalm 24:7, it says that the earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof, the people and all that dwell therein. So you and I are property of the Lord of hosts. However, the enemy realizes that most of us don't understand that principle or that concept, and so he tries to usurp his authority and his power and get false titles or false liens against us. Sometimes people do those same kind of things when they have influence in our life. One of the arenas that they have influence is in our spiritual seeing or hearing. Recently, I was working with a couple of ladies, and one of the ladies had, when she was younger, she had heard said, "Oh, you won't be able to hear or see in the Spirit." And she found subsequently that she was having trouble seeing or hearing in the Spirit. We stepped into the court of titles and deeds. We found out that there was, in fact, a lien against her spiritual seeing, which had, in essence, placed a blocking on her hearing. We got that lien released and satisfied by the blood of Jesus, and immediately her sight was dramatically improved. Where she had only been able to see blurry images, she was able to actually read the words and documents that she was seeing in the realm of the Spirit. Now, let me talk a little bit about spiritual seeing and hearing. In one of the books that I wrote called Overcoming Verdicts from the False Verdicts of Freemasonry, one of the first things that you do when you become a Freemason is you take an oath to be spiritually blind. They do a prophetic act known as putting the hoodwink over your eyes, and you are in essence taking an oath or a covenant to become spiritually blind and only be able to see the darkness that they put forth as truth. Now, a lot of people don't realize that they've made that covenant with their eyes or that their ancestors did, and it's impacting their ability to see in the here and now when something like that may have happened 2, 3, 4, 5 generations back in their lineage. Now, some people say, well, I can't be affected by what my grandfather did. Well, you certainly are. You have genetic characteristics, physical characteristics that your grandparents had, that your parents had, that others had in your lineage. Why can't you have that in the Spirit? In the realm of the Spirit, we have many things that we've inherited that we had nothing to do with personally. In Isaiah, there's a verse that says, "I did not steal, but yet I must repay." In Psalm 7, David asked the question, what is this judgment that I'm enjoined to? He realized that he was dealing with a false judgment against his life, that he was not the one who originally had the false judgment. One of his ancestors had that false judgment, and it was causing him trouble in his life today. Sometimes that's the case in your situation. Now, with one of these ladies, it was her grandmother who had said to her, "Oh, you won't be able to see." And so, subsequently, she had trouble seeing. So, when we stepped into the court of titles and deeds, we requested, we made the request or asked the question, is there a spiritual lien against her seeing? The answer was yes. We asked the question, asked the question and got the answer yes, she immediately had a sense of who that person was. She saw that event where that had occurred in her life. And so we then forgave her grandmother for what she had said. We blessed her and we released her. John 20:23 says that Jesus told us, whoever sins we forgive, they're forgiven. And whoever sins we retain, they're retained to them. I personally will choose to forgive someone as opposed to retaining their sin because I want my sins forgiven as well. Now, let me digress just a moment. In the Freemasonry, the oath that you take, I've found that about 90% of the time when people tell me that they're having trouble seeing or hearing in the Spirit, it has a direct connection to some kind of Freemasonry oath that was taken by them or one of their ancestors. Now, the second reason that I find that people have trouble seeing or hearing is that they, for example, they may have been very young and they saw something and it scared them. Out of that fear, they chose to shut down their seeing and hearing and say, oh, I don't want to see anything anymore. That was too scary for me. Now, we have solutions for both of those situations, but this newest thing that we're talking about today, getting the lien removed from your spiritual seeing, is a very new understanding that we came into just weeks ago, but every time we've used it, we've had dramatic results. People are able to see immediately that had not been able to see clearly before or even see at all. So I'm excited to bring this word to you because it's going to help you and help some friends of yours be able to see in the realm of the Spirit like we need to. In John chapter 10, Jesus said, my sheep know my voice and they follow me. We cannot follow Jesus without knowing his voice. If we can see him or hear him, we should also be able to see him. In Matthew chapter 3, when Jesus came up out of the water, it said immediately the heavens were opened, and they heard a voice, and they saw a dove. So when the heavens are opened over your life, seeing and hearing should be unveiled to you, be unlocked to you. Now, one of the things about it being unlocked is what happens when people make put a lien upon your seeing or your hearing is it's almost like they were putting a tarp or tarpaulin over you and covering you so that you can't see outside of that tarp. If you can imagine you're sitting there in your living room and somebody's laid a large tarp or a large blanket over you, you won't be able to see through that blanket or through that tarp to see the things that you need to see. Well, in this realm of the Spirit, that's what happens to us. When they get this lien upon us, it's like they put a tarp over our seeing or our hearing, and it hinders us from seeing or hearing clearly. Now, again, what we did with the young lady was we forgave her grandmother, we blessed her, and we released her. We asked that that lien be marked satisfied by the blood of Jesus, the lien against her spiritual sight and her hearing, and we requested that the tarpaulin be removed from her life so that she could see and hear in the realm of the Spirit. Now, once we had done that, we felt a release in our spirit that the request had been granted. So I asked her, let's check it out. Let's see something. Let's look at something that you had trouble seeing. We had just a few moments before completed a court case for someone else, and she was one of the assistants in that court case. As she had a little trouble seeing clearly some of the things that we were looking at. So we looked back at those things, and she was able to see clearly what she had not been able to see before. Now, the other lady that we were working with at the same time also had a lien against her spiritual seeing. That came from another individual in her past, and when we asked the question, is there a lien against my spiritual seeing, immediately she had an image of this event that had occurred years and years before that had shut down her seeing or her hearing. Again, we chose to forgive the person for saying what they did and for creating that lien against her life. We blessed that person and we released them from the bondage that sin had held upon their life. Then we requested that the tarpaulin, that the lien be satisfied by the blood of Jesus, and the covering that had been over her sight to be removed from her. Again, we felt a release in our spirit, and we said, okay, let's check this out. We stepped back into where we had been in that court case, where we were reading a medical record concerning someone, and she immediately could begin to read clearly what she had only could see bits and pieces of prior, just a few minutes before. So we've seen this thing work, this concept work every time that we've used it. And we've seen dramatic results, immediate results. And we believe the same thing can happen for you. We want you to visit our website, www.courtsofheaven.net. We have a lot of resources. We have process charts, etc. We'll be developing a process chart for this particular concept in a matter of days, so it should be up by the time you actually see this video. Also, I'm coming out with a brand new book called Cooperating with the Glory. And in that book, I'll talk about this concept a little bit more, and it's in our Engaging Heaven series. Now, what I've been talking about concerning the court of titles and deeds comes from the book that I wrote called Engaging the Courts for Ownership and Order. That's talking about getting false titles and false liens and judgments and things like that removed from your life so that you can make the progress that you need to do to make in the realm of the Spirit. I thank you for giving me a few minutes of your time today. I hope this helps you. Please contact us if you need a personal advocacy session where we assist people in the realms of the courts of heaven, getting some things unlocked that they've been unable to do. Then you can schedule on our website for those kinds of sessions. Also, we have videos and other resources available that you can learn about the courts of heaven. We want you to learn how to operate in the courts of heaven and become proficient at seeing yourself and your family and your friends and loved ones free, and so that we can impact the nations via the courts of heaven. Have a great day. Blessings to you. Bye-bye.